Hey guys, I might as well do it. I've been checking out a lot of videos about, Germany, you know, mocking the United States because of how the politics in the United States is going. Man, you guys don't know how much it burns my insides. It's like, okay, you know what? Let me express how I feel. You see, Germany went through a phase where, 1943 wrapped it up, right? World War II, whatever. Germany went through that phase, right? And if Germany was supposed to go through something like that right now again, Germans would be very, embarrassed. They would be like, "Oh shit, gosh." Right, but the thing is, Germans know what these things look like, right, and that's what's making me embarrassed right now. But nonetheless, we're gonna just get into a video that is totally has nothing to do with the United States. So we're gonna check out a video that is titled "How the German Government Works." If you have any recommendations, feel free to leave those in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching this video. Please do like and subscribe, and yeah, let's figure out how the German government works.
This is Germany. It's a country in central Western Europe that's about the size of the US state of Montana, or slightly smaller than Japan. If you're still having any trouble finding it, it's right next to the town of Słubice, Poland. Germany's federal government meets in the capital and largest city of Berlin. So aside from tourists taking selfies at Checkpoint Charlie and a bunch of people ordering doner kebabs constantly, what exactly goes on here in Berlin? So yeah, this is Berlin. So yeah, this is Germany, also known as the Federal Republic of Germany, or Bundesrepublik Deutschland. Germany's government is best described as a federal parliamentary representative democratic republic.
I thought Germany was just Deutschland and Germany.
Germany's government is best described as a federal parliamentary representative democratic republic. For those of you who aren't fluent in political scientistese, those terms just mean that Germany's government is a federation of different states under a non-monarchical government, which has different people as the head of state and head of government, I'll explain the difference with that later, and that there's a layer of politicians between the voters and the legislation. Germany is also divided into 16 states, whose German names, in alphabetical order of their English names, are Baden-Württemberg.
Wait, 16? Wait, what? 16 states? That is... What makes it this shocking is because 16 states, but you're the size of Montana, means you're the size of one state, but you have 16 states in that state. Damn. So that means pretty much these states would be comparable to cities in the United States. And I'm not downplaying Germany. Keep that in mind. I'm just doing size equivalent, if that makes any sense. Don't know why I'm doing that hand gesture, but trying to figure out sizing and so on and so forth. But that's actually wild. 16 is a lot.
Bayern, Berlin, Brandenburg, Bremen, Hamburg, Hessen, Mecklenburg, Bayern, whose German names, in alphabetical order of their English names, are Baden-Württemberg, Bayern, Berlin.
What? Berlin?
Brandenburg.
Brandenburg. How? Is this like Washington? But that is not how Washington is. That's not how it is. So it's not the same. That is inside of another state. It is similar. It technically is pretty much the same, but it's not the same. But it is similar, to be honest. I can't even act as if it's not similar, but being in a state, wild.
Bremen, Hamburg, Hessen, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Niedersachsen, Nordrhein-Westfalen, Saarland, Sachsen, Sachsen-Anhalt, Schleswig-Holstein, and Thüringen. Some of these states might have familiar names from European history, be it from various treaties or dogs, as many of them are direct descendants of the kingdoms that once ruled these lands. Although nowadays the main purpose of the states is to manage local affairs that the federal government can't, and probably shouldn't, be bothered with. These include things like schools, law enforcement, healthcare, und so weiter. States are often further divided into Regierungsbezirke, or governmental districts, and Kreise, or districts of various types, all responsible for various tasks even more local than what the state can provide for. Now, this is a video about how the German national government works, so if you're more interested in how local government works in Germany, I would highly recommend this video from Rubos. Okay, back to the federal government. Just how does that work? Well, first, there are two major legislative bodies, the Bundestag and the Bundesrat. The Bundestag meets in the famous Reichstag building and is the German parliament, while the Bundesrat meets in the Prussian House of Lords, or the Preußisches Herrenhaus, and represents the state governments. If you already know a bit about the US government, think of the Bundestag like the House of Representatives, and the Bundesrat as kind of a bit more like the Senate. The German government also essentially has two leaders. The president is the head of state, which means he, currently Frank-Walter Steinmeier, presides over representational matters and doesn't really have as much powers despite technically being the most important person in the German government. They really just preside over legislation and make sure nothing goes wrong. The second most is the president of the Bundestag, or Bundestagspräsident, currently Wolfgang Schäuble, who is basically in charge of managing the Bundestag and making sure everything's in order, and is basically Germany's equivalent of the speaker. The chancellor, however, or Bundeskanzlerin, currently the world-famous Angela Merkel, is the head of government, which means she appoints the federal cabinet and basically runs the country, in a sense. Technically, the chancellor is officially only ranked third in the German government, but if you don't know much about German politics, there's a reason you probably still heard of Angela Merkel. Okay, now for the elections, which are a little bit more complicated. Not really to vote in, but more if you're the person organizing the new government. Every 5 years, a federal election is run, and it is during this time that voters vote for new representatives in the Bundestag. Obviously, they also kind of technically vote for the Bundesrat, but we're just going to focus on the Bundestag for now because it's easier and more important. The ballot they are sent essentially comes in two parts. One for the person the voter wants representing their constituency, and another for which party the voter wants in power. You don't have to vote correspondingly either. If you're a fan of the SPD but like the FDP candidate more, you can vote both ways. This means that you're essentially electing two halves of the 598 seats, 299 of which go to local candidates, with the other 299 going to party representatives so that a political party can get a more proportional amount of seats for their votes. Although this does mean that the Bundestag may or may not go over the seat number of 598, and so additional overhang seats are often also given to balance this out. Overhang seats and their cousins leveling seats, however, are a no so complicated situation that's probably best left for another time. Just know that there are additional seats given depending on how the vote goes for a particular party. Now, you might have noticed that there are more than two main political parties in Germany. In fact, there are currently 6 parties with seats in the Bundestag, which, in decreasing order of said seats, are the CDU-CSU, technically 2 parties in a kind of union, but still, the SPD, AfD, FDP, the Left, and
I've definitely heard about the SPD, the AfD.
The Greens. These aren't exactly fringe parties either, especially since a party needs at least 5% of the popular vote to get a seat in government. This means that a singular party rarely gets a majority in government, and so they often need to pair up with another party to get legislation passed. This
part is similar to the Finnish government. I've known that part. But you got to pair up with somebody else.
Is something known as a coalition, and the current government coalition is made up of the CDU-CSU and the SPD, with the other 4 parties forming what is known as the opposition. So to wrap everything up, here's a diagram of how the German government interacts with itself. It's a little bit confusing at first, but so are most government diagrams to the unfamiliar observer. So let's start with the normal German voter, who is a German citizen over the age of 18 who has lived at least 3 straight months in Germany in the last 25 years up to the election. This only applies if you've been living outside of Germany. So in this diagram, yellow boxes represent the legislative branch, blue boxes represent the executive branch, and gray boxes the judicial branch. Green arrows mean that one body elects and/or appoints another, blue arrows that one body sends members to another, red arrows that one formally appoints and/or has veto power over another, and Three Arrows is a German YouTube channel that's completely unrelated to this. So starting with a normal voter, they elect their state legislature and the federal diet. The state legislature, in turn, appoints the state constitutional court, the minister-president, and the appointed members of the federal convention. The minister-president appoints the state cabinet, and those two send members to the federal council, which works with the federal diet to appoint the federal constitutional court and enact legislation. The federal diet, meanwhile, also sends members to the federal convention, which elects the president. The president has veto power over the same legislation we just breezed over, but is also tasked with formally appointing the chancellor, who the federal diet also elects. And the president has veto power over the federal cabinet that the chancellor then appoints. See, that actually wasn't too bad, was it?
It was terrible, dude. The problem is, these are going off color codes, right? So it's hard to actually understand the flow. I think if the color codes were removed from the diagram and instead there were like 3 different diagrams, I think it would be a lot easier to understand, because just seeing arrows going, it's like trying to follow it gets a little bit complicated, but it's complicated, that's for sure.
The German government is a big and powerful player on the world stage. Germany may be the size of Montana and have a population smaller than that of Vietnam, but Germany also has the 4th largest economy in the world, which in turn makes it arguably one of the leaders of the European Union as a whole.
Exactly.
So it's kind of important that they get this whole thing right. Thank you as always for watching. If you weren't familiar with...
It's very important. I am not familiar, and this was complicated beyond imagination. See, you guys do me dirty when I say I'm not into politics, and now I'm trying to learn politics. I hope you guys do not, batter me in the comment section, because I'm trying to learn. I try my best to stay away from it, but hey, I've been here and I gotta get involved, and I gotta learn and I gotta know about it, so that's what I'm doing. So I tried my best here. It's quite confusing. At least I know about the coalition, where 2 parties have to merge in order to be the current people in charge of everything, right? And then you have the oppositions and so on and so forth. I just don't know how people are elected. It's kind of confusing. Once it gets past the stage of you're 18 and you're able to vote, as long as you're not outside of the country and you're a citizen of Germany, once it gets past that, I get confused. It's as simple as that. But I still think this was a great video. It's a video you just go back to and, learn the rest of it. But, Google exists for a reason. You can always go there back and forth and learn additional information. But if there's anything that I should know, let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching this video as usual. I'm out of here. Peace.